I kept it to myself for a long time. I buried the doubt, the unease, the whisper of something rotten beneath the surface of my marriage. But today, everything fell into place. It was Sarah's perfume that gave her away, faint but unmistakable, clinging to my jacket when I returned home. Except, I hadn't been the one wearing it. A week ago, my mother had fallen ill, and I had spent 7 days by her bedside, watching the machines measure her fragile heartbeat, holding her hand when she slipped in and out of restless sleep. Sarah had been supportive at first, sending texts, promising to visit, asking how Mom was doing. But as the days dragged on, her messages grew shorter, her calls less frequent. I told myself she was just busy. That was always my excuse for her. Tonight, when I walked through our front door, I expected the usual, a quiet house, maybe Sarah curled up on the couch, scrolling through her phone. Instead, I was met with the unmistakable scent of someone else's presence. A disturbance in the air, like the ghost of something illicit, something meant to be hidden. The house was immaculate. Too immaculate. The throw pillows fluffed to perfection, the faint scent of candles covering something more human beneath it. Sarah was in the kitchen, humming to herself, a glass of wine in hand. Her dress was different, black, sleek, the kind she used to wear when she wanted to feel desired. "You're home early," she said, her voice light. I watched her carefully, my pulse slow and steady, though inside, something roared. "Mom's stable," I said. "I thought I'd surprise you." She smiled, but it didn't quite reach her eyes. And that's when I knew. Because Sarah didn't like surprises. Because her lipstick was fresh, her hair perfectly styled, and there was no trace of the woman who had spent the last week telling me how exhausted she was, how much she missed me, how she had just been so lonely without me around. And because, tucked beneath the couch, barely visible unless you knew where to look, was a men's leather belt that did not belong to me. I didn't say anything. Not yet. Instead, I kissed her on the cheek, inhaling deeply, as if savoring the moment. As if savoring the lie. Because tonight, I had a plan. Because tonight, Sarah would find out that she wasn't the only one who could play games. I didn't sleep that night. Sarah did, though deeply, peacefully, as if she hadn't just spent the evening covering up her betrayal with soft kisses and empty words. I lay beside her, my mind racing, my heart beating in a slow, measured rhythm. I wasn't angry. Not yet. The anger would come later, I knew. Right now, all I felt was the cold, creeping certainty of truth settling into my bones. Her phone lay on the nightstand, face down, as if hiding its secrets. I stared at it for a long time, debating. I had never gone through her phone before. Never even considered it. But there was a first time for everything, wasn't there? I reached for it, careful not to stir her. My fingers hovered over the screen. And then, as if sensing the betrayal, the device lit up on its own. A message. "Adam, miss you already." A sharp, quiet pain lanced through my chest. Not a wound. Not yet. Just the first cut. I pressed my lips together, inhaling deeply through my nose. I could have unlocked it. I knew her passcode, had seen it countless times. But I didn't need to. The message was enough. I placed the phone back exactly as I found it and lay down beside her, staring at the ceiling, feeling the shape of my life shift beneath me. Adam. I didn't know an Adam. At least, I hadn't thought I did. The office visit. The next morning, Sarah kissed me goodbye like nothing had changed. Like she hadn't spent the night dreaming of someone else. I let her go without a word, watching as she disappeared through the front door, her scent lingering behind. The moment I heard her car pull away, I got dressed. I wasn't going to wait for her to tell me the truth. I was going to find it myself. Sarah worked in advertising, a high-rise office filled with bright-eyed creatives and smooth-talking executives. She had always talked about her job with passion, but she rarely mentioned specific names. I had never been to her office before. But today, I would. I arrived just after noon, walking through the glass doors with the easy confidence of a man who belonged there. The receptionist glanced up, smiling politely. "Can I help you?" I smiled back. "Yeah, I'm here to see Sarah." She frowned slightly, tapping at her keyboard. "Sarah? She's actually not in the office today. She's working remotely." A slow, cold sensation crawled down my spine. I kept my expression smooth. Oh, she must have forgotten to mention it. The receptionist gave me a practiced smile. "It happens. Did you want to leave a message?" I shook my head. "No, that's okay. I'll catch her later." I walked out of the building, my hands curled into fists. Sarah wasn't in the office, which meant she was somewhere else. With someone else. With Adam. And I was going to find them. Sarah wasn't at work. The weight of that truth settled in my chest like a stone as I walked back to my car. I sat behind the wheel, gripping it tightly, my mind racing through the possibilities. I could have called her right then, asked her where she was, listened carefully as she spun another lie. But no, I didn't want another lie. I wanted proof. I took a deep breath, trying to think like a man who wasn't standing on the edge of a life-shattering revelation. If she wasn't at work, then where was she? And more importantly, who was she with? There was one way to find out. Sarah had shared her location with me once, years ago, after she had gotten lost during a weekend trip. She had probably forgotten about it. I never had a reason to check before. But today, I did. I pulled up the app and waited, my pulse hammering. A small red dot blinked onto the map. Not at work. Not at home. She was at a hotel. The Ashford Hotel. It took me less than 10 minutes to get there. The hotel. The Ashford wasn't a 5-star luxury resort, nor was it the kind of rundown motel where people paid in cash and asked for rooms by the hour. It was comfortable, discreet, just the right kind of place for a woman like Sarah to think she could get away with something like this. I parked across the street, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles turned white. I could have walked inside, asked the front desk for a room number, made a scene. But I didn't want a scene. I wanted her to feel what I felt. Betrayal should never be clean. I leaned back against my seat, forcing myself to breathe, to wait. If she was here, she'd have to leave eventually. And when she did, I would be watching. 30 minutes passed. An hour. My fingers drummed against my thigh, my stomach churning with restless energy. And then, there she was. Sarah stepped out of the hotel lobby, her hair slightly tousled, her dress smoothed down as if she had just taken it off and put it back on. She wasn't alone. A man followed her out. Tall, dark hair, expensive watch on his wrist. Adam. She laughed at something he said, tilting her head up at him, and he leaned in too close, his hand brushing her back in a way that was both casual and intimate. I had seen enough. I started my car and pulled into traffic, following them from a distance. She didn't know I was behind her. She didn't know that her web of lies had started to unravel. And she sure as hell didn't know what was coming next. I followed them. Through the winding streets of the city, past familiar intersections where Sarah and I had once laughed together, past cafes where we had shared lazy Sunday mornings. Every place we had ever been now felt like a backdrop to something twisted, something ugly. She had been here before. She had done this before. I kept a safe distance, watching as their car weaved through traffic, the taillights glowing like a trail of breadcrumbs leading me deeper into the truth I had been too blind to see. Where were they going? A restaurant? This place? Another hotel? But then, Sarah's car turned sharply onto a quiet suburban street lined with pristine houses, the kind with well-manicured lawns and expensive cars parked neatly in driveways. I slowed down, keeping my distance. She pulled into the driveway of a sleek, modern home. Adam's home. He stepped out first, glancing around out of habit, but he wasn't expecting anyone to be watching. Why would he? Cheaters live in the comfort of shadows, in the blind trust of the ones they betray. Sarah followed a moment later, flipping her hair over one shoulder, her laugh carrying faintly through the open air. She didn't look guilty. She didn't look hesitant. She looked like she belonged there. My grip on the steering wheel tightened as I watched her disappear inside with him. This wasn't just an affair. This wasn't just a mistake. This was something more. And that's when I knew I wasn't going to confront her yet. Not here. Not now. I needed something stronger than anger. I needed undeniable, inescapable proof. So I parked down the street, killed the engine, and I waited. Waited to see just how deep this betrayal ran. I sat there, parked down the street, watching the house where my wife had disappeared with another man. The minutes crawled by, slow and suffocating, each one tightening the noose around whatever illusions I had left. I could have stormed in, pounded on the door, demanded answers. But I didn't want answers. I wanted justice. I checked my watch. It had been nearly an hour since Sarah stepped inside. The thought of what was happening beyond those walls gnawed at me, but I forced myself to stay calm. Anger is loud. Revenge is patient. And then, the game changed. A car pulled up to the house, sleek, black, expensive. A woman stepped out. Tall, dark hair, sharp features. The kind of woman who walked like she owned the ground beneath her feet. And she was angry. Even from a distance, I could see the way she moved with purpose, her hands clenched at her sides. She didn't hesitate. She marched straight up to the front door and rang the bell. I leaned forward, pulse quickening. A few seconds later, the door swung open. Adam stood there, his face shifting from surprise to something else, something nervous. The woman said something, her voice low and controlled. Adam stepped outside, glancing around like a man with something to hide. I didn't have to wonder who she was. She was his wife, and she knew. A sudden alliance. I watched as she spoke, her movements sharp and precise. Adam tried to calm her, his hands raised in placation, but she wasn't having it. Then, Sarah appeared in the doorway. And that was the moment everything changed. The woman turned on her, and even from here, I could see the venom in her words. Sarah's confident posture faltered, her mouth opening as if scrambling for an excuse. Adam's wife wasn't here to argue. She was here to destroy. I made my move. Stepping out of my car, I walked toward the house, my footsteps measured, steady. They didn't see me coming, not until I was close enough for Sarah's eyes to lock onto mine. And that's when it happened. She froze, like a deer caught in the blinding headlights of truth. Her lips parted, but no words came out. I smiled, not because I was happy, not because I was fine, but because the trap had closed. And she knew it. Silence fell between us, thick and suffocating. Sarah stood in the doorway, her face pale, her fingers tightening around the hem of her dress, as if she could wring the guilt out of it. Adam looked from me to his wife, his expression shifting between panic and calculation. He was already looking for a way out, trying to measure how much damage control he'd have to do. But there was no escape. Not tonight. The other woman, Adam's wife, turned to me, her eyes sharp with recognition. She had pieced it together as quickly as I had. "You're her husband," she said, more statement than question. I nodded. "And you're his wife." She let out a slow, bitter laugh. "Looks like we've both been living in the dark." Sarah finally found her voice, but it was weak, fragile. "Daniel." I held up a hand. "Don't." She swallowed hard, her eyes darting between me and Adam's wife like she was searching for an escape. But there was none. Not anymore. Adam stepped forward, his voice low, measured. "Look, maybe we should take this inside. Talk like adults." I laughed. I actually laughed. The sheer audacity of it. Talk like adults? I repeated. "Is that what you two were doing inside just now?" Sarah flinched, guilt flashing across her face. Adam's wife crossed her arms, her expression unimpressed. "I'd love to hear what kind of adult explanation you have for screwing my husband, Sarah." Sarah opened her mouth, closed it. There was nothing she could say, and that's when it truly hit me. She hadn't just cheated. She hadn't just betrayed me in a moment of weakness. She had built a life around this lie. A separate, secret life where I was the fool who didn't see the truth. Until now. I exhaled slowly, looking at Sarah one last time. "I hope it was worth it," I said, my voice quiet but firm. "Because you just lost everything." And with that, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, exposed, unraveling, caught in the web she had spun. But this wasn't over. No, this was only the beginning. I didn't look back. I heard Sarah call my name, her voice unsteady, but I didn't stop. I walked back to my car with the slow, deliberate steps of a man who had just witnessed the death of something. Not love. Love had died long before tonight. What I had just buried was the illusion of us. As I pulled away from the curb, my hands steady on the wheel, I saw it in the rearview mirror, Sarah still standing in Adam's doorway, frozen between her past and the wreckage of her present. Adam turned toward her, saying something, but his wife? She wasn't done. The last thing I saw was the sharp, venomous point of her finger pressing into his chest, her voice raised in rage. I should have felt satisfied, but all I felt was emptiness. The divorce begins. I didn't go home. Not to our home. That place had been tainted the moment Sarah invited another man into her heart, into her body. Instead, I drove to a hotel across town, checked in, and sat on the edge of the bed staring at nothing. Then, I did the thing I had been avoiding since I first suspected the truth. I called my lawyer. It was late, but he answered, his voice groggy. "Daniel? What's going on?" "I need a divorce," I said. Silence. Then a sigh. "Tell me everything." So I did. I laid it all out, Sarah's affair, the lies, the proof I had gathered, the confrontation at Adam's house. My lawyer listened, not interrupting, and when I finished, his tone was cool, professional. "Do you want to ruin her?" he asked. I considered the question. I could. I had the proof, the upper hand. I could take everything from her, our home, our assets, her reputation. I could leave her standing in the rubble of her own choices with nothing but regret. But in that moment, I realized something. I didn't need to destroy Sarah. She had already done that to herself. I just want out, I said. Fast. Clean. I don't want to drag this out. He exhaled. Understood. I'll get the paperwork started first thing in the morning. The message she never expected. After I hung up, I stared at my phone for a long time. Sarah had called me twice. I ignored her. But then, I did something I knew would shake her more than any fight ever could. I sent her a text. Daniel, I spoke to my lawyer. You'll be hearing from him soon. Delivered. Read. The typing bubble appeared immediately. Then disappeared. Then reappeared. She was panicking. I could imagine her in that house, pacing, trying to find the right words to fix something unfixable. But I wasn't interested in her words anymore. I turned off my phone, stretched out on the unfamiliar hotel bed, and closed my eyes. For the first time in a long time, I slept without a lie beside me. And when I woke up, the real battle would begin. The morning after was silent. No alarm clock. No scent of coffee drifting through the air. No Sarah moving around the house, humming to herself as if she weren't a liar. Just peace. I checked my phone. 7 missed calls. 5 unread messages. All from her. I didn't open them. She didn't deserve my time anymore. Instead, I dialed my lawyer. Morning, Daniel, he said, his tone brisk. I've started drafting the papers. I'll need some details. Do you want to go after assets? The house. I thought about it. The home Sarah and I had built together. The memories in every room. Then I thought about the way she had defiled it. The way she had smiled at me while sneaking off to another man's bed. Take everything you can, I said. I want her to feel this. A pause. Then a satisfied hum. Understood. Sarah had made her choices. Now, she'd live with them. The call I finally answered. I was checking out of the hotel when my phone rang again. Sarah. This time, I answered. Daniel, she started, her voice cracking. Please. Please talk to me. I let silence stretch between us, listening to her breathe, listening to the desperation in the space where her confidence used to be. You don't get to beg, I finally said. My voice was cold. Controlled. She sniffled. It wasn't like that. I was lonely. You were gone for so long. You were lonely? I cut her off, a bitter laugh escaping. I was sitting in a hospital, watching my mother fight for her life. And you were lonely? A shaky exhale. I made a mistake. No. A mistake is one bad choice. You built an entire life behind my back. She was crying now. I never meant to hurt you. But you did. Silence. She wanted me to tell her it wasn't too late, that we could fix this. But we couldn't. I'm done, Sarah. She sobbed. Daniel, please. I ended the call. She could cry all she wanted. The divorce papers would speak for me. A new ally. I was halfway to my lawyer's office when my phone buzzed again. An unknown number. I answered cautiously. Hello. A woman's voice. Adam's wife. It's Lily, she said smoothly. I got your number from the hotel records. I leaned back in my seat. To what do I owe the pleasure? A dry chuckle. I thought you might want to know. I'm divorcing him. And I'm taking everything. I smiled. Good. You. The same. A pause. Then, how about we help each other make sure they don't walk away from this untouched? I considered that for a long moment. And then, I grinned. I'm listening. I met Lily at a small cafe downtown, the kind of place where no one asks questions and secrets settle into the air like steam from a fresh cup of coffee. She was already waiting when I arrived, a black folder resting on the table beside her untouched drink. I took the seat across from her. You look like a woman on a mission. She smirked. You have no idea. I studied her sharp, composed, but beneath the surface, I could see it. The same quiet rage that burned inside me. They don't get to walk away from this, she said, flipping open the folder. Adam has money. Investments. A life he thought was untouchable. But he was careless. I have access to accounts he never thought I'd check. I raised an eyebrow. And Sarah. Her lips curled. I did some digging. Your wife? She's been siphoning money from your shared account for months. Paying for hotel rooms, gifts. I even found a few transfers, directly to Adam. My stomach tightened, but I didn't let it show. She had used our money. My money. Lily leaned in. We can ruin them. I exhaled slowly. Tell me how. The plan. Lily had already started the process of freezing joint assets. By the time Adam realized what was happening, his accounts would be locked in a legal battle he couldn't win. I followed her lead. My lawyer moved quickly, ensuring Sarah would walk away from this with nothing but regret. No house. no savings. But that wasn't enough. I wanted her to feel it. And I knew exactly how. The dinner invitation. Sarah reached out again that night. This time, I answered. Daniel, she breathed. I need to see you. I kept my voice calm. Fine. Let's have dinner. One last conversation. A pause. Then, hesitant hope. Really? Tomorrow night. 7 p.m. At the place where we had our first date. Her breath hitched. Okay. I'll be there. She thought this was her chance. She had no idea what was waiting for her. Because she wouldn't be the only one at that table. Adam would be there too. And so would Lily. The final betrayal. The next night, I arrived at the restaurant early. Lily was already there, sipping a glass of wine, her expression unreadable. Sarah walked in first. She had dressed up, makeup perfect, eyes hopeful. She scanned the room, looking for me. Then Adam walked in. Her face fell apart. And then she saw Lily. Her knees nearly buckled. I watched her breathe through the panic, trying to compose herself, trying to salvage the wreckage. I gestured to the empty seats. Sit. Adam turned to Sarah, his voice low and sharp. You set me up? She shook her head, her face draining of color. I didn't. Lily laughed softly. Oh, darling. You both got caught. I let the silence stretch, savoring the way they shifted in discomfort, the way their world unraveled in real time. Then I leaned forward. Sarah, I said, my voice even. Meet Adam's wife. Lily. She looked at me with wide, desperate eyes. Daniel, please. No, I cut in. You don't get to beg. You don't get to explain. You get to listen. I turned to Adam. You thought you were in control. Thought you could play the both of us. But the thing about affairs? They don't stay secret forever. Lily smirked. And now you both lose everything. Sarah's hands trembled. Daniel, I still love you. I smiled. That's the problem. I don't love you anymore. And with that, I stood up, throwing a stack of divorce papers on the table. Lily did the same. Enjoy your dinner, I said. Then we walked out, leaving them drowning in the mess they had made. Sarah didn't call after that night. Maybe she finally understood. Or maybe she was too busy trying to pick up the shattered pieces of her life. Either way, it didn't matter. The divorce papers were signed within the week. No drawn-out fights, no desperate pleas. Just a quiet resignation from a woman who had lost everything. And Adam? Lily didn't go easy on him. She took half of everything he owned, froze his assets, and made sure his reputation in the business world was permanently stained. By the time she was done, he was drowning in legal battles he had no chance of winning. We didn't check on them. We didn't need to. They were already destroyed. A new beginning. It was strange, waking up in my new apartment. No trace of Sarah, no lingering scent of her perfume, no memories clawing at the walls. For the first time in years, I felt free. One morning, as I sipped my coffee on the balcony, my phone buzzed. Lily, dinner tonight? Celebration's overdue. I smirked. Me. Sounds like a plan. She had been the one good thing to come out of all of this. Two strangers, bound by betrayal, turning pain into something else, something stronger. And as I looked out at the city below, the weight of the past finally behind me, I realized something. I had survived. And now? Now, it was time to live. Weeks passed. Then months. Sarah became a ghost. No more desperate calls, no more messages begging for another chance. She had vanished into the wreckage of her own making. Adam? He fought. Tried to salvage his business. Tried to convince Lily to reconsider. But some betrayals don't come with second chances. And Lily? She flourished. The divorce left her richer, but it wasn't about the money. It was about watching a man who thought he was untouchable fall. We saw each other often, dinners, drinks, conversations that started about our exes but slowly became about something else. About us. The unexpected invitation. One evening, I got a message from an unknown number. Unknown. Meet me at the Ashford. Please. Just one conversation. Sarah. I stared at the message, debating. And then curiosity won. I drove to the same hotel where she had betrayed me, where her lies had unraveled in real time. She was waiting in the lobby, thinner than before, her face pale. She looked up, hope flickering in her tired eyes. Daniel. I didn't sit. I didn't smile. What do you want, Sarah? She swallowed hard. I needed to see you. I exhaled, patience thinning. Why? Her lips trembled. Because I miss you. I let the words sit between us, cold and lifeless. You miss me. I repeated. Or do you miss the life you lost? She flinched. I made a mistake. No, Sarah, I said quietly. You made choices. Tears welled in her eyes. Can't we just? I shook my head. No. And for the first time, I saw realization dawn in her eyes. She had truly lost me. There was no fixing this. No undoing the past. I turned to leave, and just as I reached the door, I said one last thing. I hope it was worth it. And then, I walked out for the last time. The past was behind me. Sarah was nothing more than a fading memory, a lesson learned the hard way. I didn't think about her anymore, not when I woke up, not when I fell asleep. Whatever regrets she carried, they were hers alone. I had moved on. And for the first time in a long time, I felt free. A different kind of ending. Lily and I kept in touch. What started as shared vengeance turned into something else, something neither of us had expected. One evening, as we sat on our balcony, sipping wine, she turned to me with a knowing smile. Do you think they ever saw this coming? She asked. I smirked. Not in a million years. She clinked her glass against mine. To survival. To something better, I corrected. And for the first time, I wasn't looking at the past. I was looking at the future. One that had nothing to do with Sarah. And everything to do with me. The end. If you like this story, please like and subscribe to the channel.